Dave here at the house. Now we're going to be talking about stance width, angles, stuff like that. Basically, when you're just starting off, you can kind of get like a reference stance on the board. Usually a certain set of inserts or a certain position in the track will be listed as the reference. If you haven't snowboarded before, it's usually going to be a good place to start. You know, for the average rider riding that board, it would be a good spot to place the bindings. Start off with width. Good rule of thumb is to have them a little bit wider than shoulder width. Typically, if you're a freestyle rider, you bang out a little bit wider stance. If you're a free rider, more of a carver, stuff like that, you're going to have them a little bit in. Once again here though, personal preference and monkeying with it each time you go out is going to be the best way to find your perfect stance, as you very rarely do that throwing it on the board the first time. From there, we'll move into angles. Once again here, personal preference is definitely going to be a factor. Basically, for all riders, you're going to want to have some angle in the front foot. Typically, most people like somewhere between, say, like a 15 to a 21. So you're always going to have a little bit of angle in the front foot. The rear foot is where it varies quite a bit. A freestyle rider will have it ducked out with the toes kind of pointing towards the nose and the tail. What that's going to do is it's just going to make you a little bit more stable. It's also going to help you ride switch. Most people have slightly less angle than they have in the front foot, but myself and some other people will have about the same angle. I ride 18-18 or 18-18. If you're a free rider, typically you're going to be riding in one direction. Whether you're regular goofy, you're going to be riding that way more than switch. So with that, a lot of those guys will angle the binding in, not quite as much as the front foot, but have both of them kind of shifted towards the nose. The reason for this is it's going to turn your body and open up your trunk to be allocated more down the hill. Same kind of thing with a freestyle rider. They've got it ducked out, so when they turn to ride switch, they're allocated to look more down the hill that way. Other than that, as I mentioned before with the mounting videos, you want to make sure the boot is centered on the board itself. You want to make sure you have the same amount of toe and heel overhang. Usually you can do this by just tacking the binding on by a couple screws, sticking the boot in, checking it out, and seeing if you need to adjust how the binding sits on the board or adjust it in the track with this EST system here. Like I said, personal preference definitely weighs huge in this. Little tweaks here and there every time you go out, and you'll find your perfect stance. This is just a rough guideline, and if you have any questions, you can always give us a shout. One final note, talking about centering the stance versus a directional stance. Most boards nowadays will either be kind of twin or directional, but you do get some boards in between. They're like a directional twin where they can be mounted either way. Basically, the centered stance is typically going to be more for a freestyle rider. The twin boards, if cut in half, will be symmetrical, have the same nose and tail, and so the inserts and the binding should be mounted accordingly on that one. Benefit of a centered stance is you're going to be more balanced, more playful. It's going to be better for switch riding, stuff like that, better for spinning. A directional board is going to give you, or directional setup is going to give you a little bit more stability at speed. It's going to give you a little bit more stability through uneven terrain as well too. A little better float and powder, less leg burn. So it all depends on what kind of rider you are. Basically, to center up a stance, you'll see the markings on the board. You want to keep it centered. Nose and tail should be the same. On a directional, both scoot back, creating a longer nose than tail. And like I said, just be conscious of what kind of board you're doing it on. You really don't want to go directional on a true twin, and you don't want to set up a twin stance on a very directional board either. Yeah, that would be the gist of centered versus directional.